So as Pastor Aaron was saying, we are going to be looking at Psalm 36 this morning. And I'm going to I'll read it, but I'll kind of talk a little bit as I read it. But before that, and I forgot to ask Tavis, were you able to upload some of those pictures? 8 pictures? You were able to? A picture. Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. Don't worry about it. If we don't have pictures for them all, that's fine. But I was curious to know if you would come up with the same kind of ideas for contrast and compare as I did. So as kids are going to school, one of the assignments that kids often get is you have to compare and contrast something. So you have to write an assignment, and you have to say, okay, how is something different than something else? How are they the same? And that kind of thing, because often when we compare and contrast, it helps us to understand and highlights the differences between the two, or it makes us understand something more because we have looked at the opposite. And that's essentially what Psalm 36 has done. And so I'm kind of curious to know what kind of opposites you guys can think of. So you just shout them out if you can think of and I had thought of a bunch and put them on there, but I guess they're not all up there, so that's okay. You can't think of any? High and low. Okay, high, low. That's one I hadn't thought of. What's another one? Black and white. Yes, black and white. Another one. Open, closed. Right? Another one. Pardon? Calgary and Edmonton. Okay, I hadn't thought of that, but okay. I am not going to ask you why you came up with that. Anything else?
Light and dark.
Light and dark. Hot and cold. In and out. Fast and slow. Right. Wood and metal. Are they opposites? Yeah? JB is a construction person, I guess. You can compare and contrast them. You really can. That is true. Pardon? Freeze and boil. Yeah. Yeah, freeze and boil. Yeah. Dry and wet. Right? That was another one that I had come up with. Hope and despair. War and peace. I had a great picture for war and peace. It's not on there? You're getting it. I had a great picture for war and peace. Dark and light, life and death. So those are some of the ones I thought of as well. And what Psalm 36 does is it compares evil, wickedness, sinfulness, describes that, and then describes God and God's love and God's character. And by looking at the one first and then looking at God's love, it highlights God's love and helps us to understand and become more aware of the incredibleness of God's love for us and for the world. So, are there any pictures there? No, you know what, don't worry about it, Tavis. Thanks. It's okay. So Psalm 36. David says, I have a message from God in my heart concerning the sinfulness of the wicked. So when he's saying this, it really, and he's talking as if wickedness and sinfulness are out here. And when you look at the original and you look at some comparisons, there is also very good possibility that it's not just that David's talking about the wicked people who are there, but he's also realizing that there is wickedness and sinfulness in himself as well. And so it's not just we're looking at everybody else, but we're so good, but the sense that this is out there. And he's not talking about a specific person, he's talking in general, right? And then as a result of that, out of that comes our words, our actions, and so on. Concerning the sinfulness of the wicked. Now, wicked isn't a word that we use very often, but it is the idea that people who take advantage of the weak, people who take advantage of people who are vulnerable, people who are thinking more about themselves and than about others. Right? So he's not thinking about moralism so much here. Okay? There's no fear of God before their eyes. In other words, they're not worried about God. There's no awe or reverence for God in front of them. They don't worry. They figure, I can do whatever I want because there is no consequences. In their own eyes, they flatter themselves too much to detect or even hate their sin. Their thoughts are in a direction where they don't even notice what it is that is sinful, that they have missed God. The words of their mouths are wicked and deceitful. They fail to act wisely or do good. Even on their beds, they plot evil. They commit themselves to a sinful course and do not reject what is wrong. So what he's saying is that everything, it's all-encompassing. Their entire lives are in a direction that does not include God. And they think themselves are pretty good, full of pride, self-congratulations. And their attitude is one is me, myself, and I, which is something that we think about more often, right? It's a saying that we know of in our culture. And when I think about this description of evil, of wickedness, and you look at the world around us, when I look at my own life, when I look at, we could think of the world in general, we could think of our culture, we can think of our churches, our denominations, our workplaces, our friends, our family. We all know this idea that it's not necessarily individuals. This person I know is wicked, but this sense that there's something out there and within us that pushes down people, that doesn't care about others, that is more about what can I get out of it. It is in our systems, our political systems, our economic systems, our justice systems, right? It's within our own country. It's within other countries. And then we look at the world and we see violence, and we see injustice, and we see people who are living in poverty and can't get out of poverty. We see people who don't have access to health care. We see people who are being abused, and the list goes on and on and on. And it can feel like this evil, which David describes here as being all-encompassing, that it really is all-encompassing, and there is nothing else. That evil and sinfulness and God being not a part of the way things are, his way and his justice and his mercy, that is not going to happen. But then David immediately, without any, he has that description, and then he says this, and Pastor Aaron read it earlier. Your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens, as high as it'll go. Your faithfulness to the skies, to the clouds. Your righteousness, your right way of living, your guiding way of living, your justice is like the highest mountains. And he actually uses the word El here as a superlative. And the word El means God, which is really interesting. This highest mountains, it's as strong as you can get, like God. Your justice like the great deep, way down into the abundance of the ocean. And justice and righteousness, they're the same word. They're often, in the Hebrew, it's the same understanding, it's the same word. It's a way of being. Let me see if I can find this. So it's a straight way, righteousness. The straight way of caring, the way of loving. You, Lord, preserve both people and animals. You preserve them. You save them. How priceless is your unfailing love, O God. Priceless. How precious. People take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast. They drink on the abundance of your house, on the fat of your home. They drink from it. You give them drink from the river of delights. You give them drink from the torrent of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. He is the source of life. So when you have that description compared to the other description, it's like you see all this evil, and yet this is God's love. And ultimately, God's love, right, was shown in Jesus Christ, who he sent. God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. God's love is self-sacrificing, poured himself out for each of us. And then David says, continue your love to those who know you, your righteousness to the upright in heart. May the foot of the proud not come against me, nor the hand of the wicked drive me away. Now, I find that a really interesting saying. I don't really know, but we have sayings in our culture and in our language as well. And essentially what David is saying here is that he's praying that God will keep him close to himself so that he will not be tempted to be drawn toward ignoring God, toward missing the mark, toward going in the direction of selfishness, of whichever way you want to put it, whether it's in the form of climbing the corporate ladder. Now that's my own personal thought, but whichever way. So praying that he will not be tempted to go in that direction. And then he says, see how the evildoers lie fallen, thrown down, not able to rise. And he says that in the present tense. This is the way it is. This is absolutely the way it is. So there may be evil that is here, and it seems like it's overwhelming and all-encompassing. But God's love and God's power is far greater. And the result of that is Jesus Christ coming and dealing with sin, wickedness, and drawing us to himself so that we can also love. I don't know about you, but I find often that it's a lot easier to look around and get a picture that there is so much wrong in this world. Wrong in myself, wrong in those around us, wrong in our systems. And it can be a lot harder to really see God's love and God's mercy and God's way and God's righteousness. And we read it in Scripture, and we're like, yes, God's love is so much greater. But when we look around, it can be a lot harder to actually truly see it and believe it. And I think part of that, and perhaps I'm just speaking for myself here, but I suspect that for a lot of us, you know, the way God works, he doesn't work in these really major ways so often. Often he works in very small ways and in ways that are completely opposite to the way we think that if you want to make a difference in society or in anything, he actually works opposite to that kind of thing, which is exactly what Jesus did, right? When Jesus came, the idea would be that he's the king, he's going to solve all the issues, he's going to free the Israelites. And what does he do? He ends up dying. He allows himself to be put on the cross and die, put on the cross by the sinful, the wicked, right? And he allows himself to do that, and it's like, okay, well, that makes no sense, and that's not going to get us anywhere. But giving up sacrificial love takes the power out of evil. And if you think about perhaps your lives, and I'm just going to give you one example from my own life, and then I'll see if we can, you can think about it and perhaps share for a couple minutes an opposite that helps you to really see Jesus' love, if you think about it. For me, it's, I've talked more often about my friend Patsy, and I'm hoping and praying that one day she'll be able to join us and that she will be able to tell her own story, but she right now is still not well and in way too much pain. But the fact that God brought us together shows me, proves to me, one of the ways that God's love is more powerful and way greater than any kind of injustice. Patsy is Indigenous. She has nothing in common. We have nothing in common in terms of education, culture, finances, anything you can think of in terms of the way the world works. We have nothing in common. People would say, I'm kind of here and she's kind of there, and our relationship would be, well, I'm helping her out. I'm giving her what she needs. I'm being there for her. But the fact is that over 18 years of knowing each other, she has shown me and taught me what it means to love in the face of incredible hardship, to forgive when people have done you wrong, to be generous when you have very little. And she has taught me so much about the self-sacrificing nature of Jesus' love. And when I look at that, and I look at how God has made us to become heart sisters, she calls me her white sister, but I say I can't call her my brown sister. It just doesn't work. I can't do that. But heart sisters over 18 years. Someone who is family. To me, that shows Christ's love. That opposite of the way the world actually so often works. So I am going to give you about 5 minutes to maybe share with each other if there's anything in your lives that show you God's love in comparison, that evil and sinfulness will not reign. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that. You can just kind of turn around, share within your, you kind of spread out a little bit, but see if you can do that for about 5 minutes.